Is Canada going to impose a $25,000 penalty on people leaving the country to stop them leaving, as more and more people are opting to do so because of the failing economy, failing government, and failing country? So let's get right into it and see what's going on. This post gained so much traction online. I wanted to cover it. I could not find anything on this. So it's not just this website here. I just could not find anything on it. Canada proposes $25,000 exit fee for those leaving the country, fact-checking the viral claim. Canadian government introducing a new policy to fine or impose an exit fee on those who leave the country. Several posts with a similar screenshot have been doing the rounds on social media, claiming that Prime Minister Justin Trudeau proposed such a change. However, these claims that have gone viral are found to be untrue, as none of the official Canadian government websites mention about it anywhere. So interestingly enough, the screen grab opens with a headline saying Canada proposes $25,000 departure penalty and increased taxes to curb immigration crisis. The contents of the headline, however, professionally presented, are misleading and false. The authorities in Canada have no such plan to propose any such hefty costs on ordinary Canadians who want to leave the country. So it's incredibly interesting. This post went viral about a $25,000 exit fee. I was seeing it being shared almost constantly on Twitter, and it gained a lot of traction. Now, there seems to be no fact behind this claim, or at least I've looked on the website. I can't find any fact towards this claim, which is what we're going to get into. We're just going to play out the hypothetical scenario that they did actually do this and why they would actually do this, because obviously you have got a massive amount of people that are actually leaving Canada right now. So first of all, let's start off with the student unemployment crisis that is going on. You've probably not heard about this one, but a tightening job market in Canada fueled by a surge in immigration that produced the fastest population growth in 67 years is hitting the country's large cohort of international students particularly hard. With more than 1 million foreign students in the country who are largely restricted to low-wage, part-time jobs, photos are being shared on social media of long lines forming outside businesses with even a single job opening for a position such as a cashier. So again, guys, this is like something that would happen in a third world country, something that would happen in a depression. I mean, it is crazy. And when you look at the youth unemployment rate, it's no wonder. Youth unemployment hovers near 12%. Unemployment in Canada has been inching up in recent months, hitting 6.1% in March and roughly twice that for young people. According to the federal government statistical agency, the trend is attributed in part to a rapid population growth fueled almost entirely by immigration and the arrival of temporary residents such as seasonal workers and foreign students. Very interesting. And then they've recently put in this restriction here. So because the foreign students pay much higher fees than Canadian citizens, they are also an important source of revenue for the nation's university. So obviously that puts pressure on the government. They lobby the government to obviously keep immigration high and keep everything open for these students. However, facing mounting political pressure, the government in January announced new caps on the number of foreign students that would be admitted, and last month announced a plan to scale back the number of temporary residents. But as we've discussed many times on this channel, we've already seen that the numbers were actually falling before that because word was already spreading that the Canadian economy is collapsing. So that started to happen already, and then they came in with these new measures after the fact. So it looks like it's them that have done anything when it's really the economy, which is bigger than the government anyway when it comes to immigration. I mean, when it comes to immigration, if you haven't got the jobs, if people are just unemployed, it's not going to work. And eventually word spreads of what's going on in Canada. And, you know, the unemployment rate, if you look at a 5-year chart, doesn't look too bad because of that massive pandemic spike that was very short-lived. But we're consistently rising now since early 2023, which is a really bad sign. And if you look on a 1-year chart, you can see how this has really inched up and gone up and gone up. So it's really interesting what's happening with unemployment. And then we've got a growing trend of Canadians that are looking to leave, a growing trend. So the study found that the number of Canadians living abroad relative to the national population was 5 times higher than in the US. So this comes from National Post. So a new report lends insight into Canadians who leave the country, estimated to number around 4 million in 2016, or about 11% of the population according to Statistics Canada. Canada has trouble retaining new citizens, with onward migration showing an increase by 31% between 2017 and 2019, according to the report published by the McGill Institute. So that is really crazy when you think about it. So Canada is having trouble retaining the immigrants now, and they're seeing this immigration bubble that we've seen for so long is imploding on itself. The foundation of that bubble is unable to support the weight anymore, and the economy is not supporting the immigration either. So eventually rubber's going to meet the road with that, and that's exactly like we're seeing. So we're seeing more and more people who want to leave, more and more immigrants who are coming and they're going within 12 months because they can't find a job. So the number of naturalized Canadians deciding to leave Canada within 4 to 7 years of arrival is partly due to the lack of affordability. Yeah. No shit. I mean, it's just obvious, isn't it? And that is the crazy thing, because if you really think if they were to impose a $25,000 fee, and I saw a lot of chatter about this on Twitter as well, if they were actually to do it, I could see them more doing it on houses. So essentially, if you sold a home, which was your primary residence, so it's exempted of capital gains tax, and then you want to leave, then they impose that fee. I could see that more likely to happen, because I'll tell you why. It's because they know that a lot of people are just cashing in their checks on the house and they're getting out of here. And that's a problem for the government. And instead of the government actually addressing all the root causes of that problem, they will probably just look to say, hey, how can we stop this? Let's just put in a fee. So, even though that $25,000 fee, essentially, as we know it now, is untrue, although, you could see it come out within the next 6 to 12 months, who knows? Nothing could surprise us here on this channel, and then we'll know it's true in due course of time. But it's very interesting, isn't it? What they would be trying to do is just de-incentivize people from leaving the country, and obviously putting a big tax in place would definitely do that. So it's interesting what's happening there, but more and more Canadians leaving. Obviously, we covered this last year, but I just want to remind you, because it's just insane when you've got people coming from Ukraine and then they're realizing how bad it is, and they're moving to different places in Europe. So the strenuous work and high cost of living has taken its toll. Martin Yenko, 44, is now planning a return to Sweden. His monthly expenses in Toronto, roughly $100 for a phone plan, $150 for public transit, $400 for groceries, and $1,000 for a room in a rooming house where the kitchen and the bathroom is shared among 4 tenants. Any money left over is sent back to family still in Ukraine. At least in Stockholm, he earned enough to have savings, he said. I'm tired all the time, Martin Yenko said in an interview. I want to go back to Europe because it's such a difficult life in Canada. And he's not lying. And we're all fucking tired. We're all tired of this shit. We're sick of being told by the government and virtue signal that everything is going to get better, and they're doing all these different things to support us, which are just essentially making things worse. And the government getting involved with anything, just more government in itself, is just a worse situation. So, and then you've got GDP per capita again, which fell. So with the recent GDP report that we saw, you've got GDP per capita that's falling. This cratering GDP number has only ever been seen during a recession. It's because we're in one. We're in one. The mainstream media just refuses to acknowledge that we're in a recession. I've been saying we're heading into a depression. We're in that transitional period right now, in my opinion, especially if you're out of the labor market right now or you're trying to find a job, you are in that depression. So, however, the reading that put economists most on edge was GDP per capita. We've said this many times. It's not the best reading, but it's certainly a reading that you can use. A decline of this magnitude has never been recorded outside of a recession. Again, it's because we're in one. We don't need your fudged numbers from Statistics Canada to say that we're in a recession. Just go out there, talk to people, see what's happening with the data, see what's happening with insolvencies, see what's happening with EI claims, everything like that, and you will see it. So a decline of this magnitude has never been recorded outside of a recession, said in a note following the GDP release. He estimates first quarter annualized GDP per capita currently currently stands at minus 1.2% and 0.3% non-annualized. GDP per capita matters because it is an indicator of the average, and that's important. The average standard of living of the population. Higher population growth naturally leads to better economic growth in the short term. But reports by people like the Fed have already been done, which show that it does lead to economic growth that's higher in the short term, but at the cost of economic growth in the long term, especially if your economy can't support it. And isn't it funny that they say that it is an indicator of the average standard of living of the population? Because again, if the top 10% are earning most of the money, then you can have their GDP per capita that is rising. Meanwhile, the average Joe and Jane and people at the lower incomes are just having their GDP per capita absolutely collapse, which is why you are seeing so many people that are looking for the door essentially. And they're saying, I want to get out of here because it's not going to end up well. When you look at things GDP on a per capita basis, the Canadian economy is for all intents and purposes in a recession. Yeah, no shit. That's what we've been saying on this channel for a long time. Despite expected annualized growth of 2.5% in the first quarter that many economists attributed to one-off events, falling GDP per capita is only one sign of a flailing economy. More like a failing economy in Canada. And you know, this is like some of the bank's projections. The Globe and Mail put this together, and I put my projection on here as well. So my projection is you're not going to return to the historic trend. That has already happened in places like the US. You're going to continue going down like this for the average person. The average person is just going to continue to see their GDP per capita or their wealth, prosperity, their standard of living go down. That's just going to continually happen because the pressures that we're seeing in the economy, things like people's purchasing power just being eroded at a massive, rapid rate, are yet to be realized in the real economy because it's all been put on credit cards, for instance. So everything has a delayed impact and effect, and obviously it's gonna affect the economy and it's not gonna be good. So anyway, if you've enjoyed this video, I would highly recommend that you check out this video here. If you're looking for a VPN to get around the censorship in Canada, go to expressvpn.com/marketmania. I will see you in the next one. Take care.